Prashant, how do I send a chat to everybody? I got only privately here. How do I change that to everybody?
Can't hear you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Here.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and start with chanting the Namo Tassa and the three refuges. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddhang Saranang Gacchami. Dhammang Saranang Gacchami. Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. Dutiyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami. Dutiyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami. Dutiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. Tatiyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami. Tatiyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami. Tatiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. So friends, welcome to this Sunday afternoon Dhamma talk and the guided meditation program. Although for the last 2 weeks I've been going over some verses in the Dhamma Pada rather than just giving just a longer Dhamma talk. But hopefully based on the Dhammapada verses, of course, people want to ask questions are going to have to ask it through the chat room because I'm not able to actually hear people over the microphone. So we'll do everything over the chat. So last week I went over some verses in the first chapter of the Dhammapada. Up until verse 14. So today I'm going to be going over verses 15 and 16 and perhaps 17 and 18 because they're kind of similar. So as I've done before, I'm going to chant the Pali of the verse and then give the English translation. Ida sochati pecha sochati papakari ubayata sochati sochati sovihanyati disvakamarkiletam attano. And then the opposite of it. Ida modati pecha modati kata punyo ubayata modati so modati so pa modati Disva Kama Visuddhi Matano. So I'm going to read the English translations of those because they're like twin verses. So the first one, here he grieves and hereafter he grieves. In both states the evildoer grieves. He grieves and he is afflicted, perceiving the impurity of his own negative deeds. So, of course, this refers to the karma, and the impure deeds refers to the unwholesome actions of body, speech, and mind. And that means our thoughts, speech, and actions that are motivated by greed, some types of attachment, selfish greed, ill will, anger, hatred, and self-centered delusions. And then the opposite is that here he rejoices, hereafter he rejoices. In both states, the doer of good rejoices. He rejoices, exceedingly rejoices, perceiving the purity of his own deeds. And I would say the happiness that comes from the good deeds. So he rejoices from the good deeds, but he's rejoicing because he sees the happiness and good results that comes from practicing the sila, practicing the observing the precepts and basically practicing the Dhamma. So both of these states, they're the twin verses because they kind of, one reflects the opposite of the other. So again, as I mentioned, it's due to the law of karma, which you all already know probably quite well. Now I'm going to read the story that comes from the first one. And it seemed that there was a man who butchered pigs. So there was a farmer who was a pig butcher named Chunda or Kunda, who lived by, slaughtering pigs for sale throughout his lifetime and was the subject to much suffering in his last days. So the pigs suffered, of course, by being slaughtered. And he suffered in his last days because he realized the impurity of his deeds. Because when he was younger and started butchering pigs, probably he had not heard about Dhamma, or at least from the Buddha. But then it seems, I'm not sure if it was this one, but there was, I think this person lived behind the monastery in Savatthi, the Jetavana monastery in Savatthi. So there was a pig butcher who did that. And in the monastery, even while the Buddha was giving lectures, they would hear the squeal of pigs being slaughtered. So here the Buddha was preaching Dhamma, and at the same time going on, this farmer who had no regard for the Dhamma, although it was his livelihood, I guess it's the only thing he knew how to do maybe, but still at the same time as the pure Dhamma was being taught, this person is, hardly a half a mile away slaughtering animals. So perhaps later on in his life, he realized that what he was doing wasn't right, but perhaps he had nothing else to do or no way to earn a livelihood. And so he suffered. And it is said, before dying, the poor man rolled on the floor, actually squealing like a pig. and after death, he was born in a woeful state. So this can pertain also not just to killing, but to habitually breaking any of the precepts. That naturally any person, unless they are somehow mentally challenged or in some other way, somewhere out there, anybody knows that breaking the precepts is not skillful. Really deep down they know it, but they do it anyway because they get away with it. So telling lies, stealing, cheating others, using bad speech, that we can see so much of this even in the current day, political day, and everything else, and so on. But sometimes people believe that breaking the precepts, if it's to achieve some goal, it's all right. So some people believe like that. But and they may get away with breaking precepts for some time. But if it doesn't catch up with them in this lifetime itself, it will catch up with them, when they die, and these memories of these, the memories of these states, will go with them. So that's what it means. The evildoer grieves now, and they'll grieve later also. And then the opposite of that, here he rejoices, hereafter he rejoices. In both states, the doer of good rejoices. That means the person who practices Dhamma, the person who observes the precepts. He rejoices here, and then he rejoices afterwards. So, and basically it's because of the guilt, worry, remorse, and fear that comes into the mind of your current actions, your past or current actions, which you suffer mentally here, at least to some extent. And then you will suffer the result of that even in the future lives. But I see most people that do bad actions in this life, they don't believe in a future life. So, but that doesn't mean there isn't one. But anyway, that's another debate. So, we can see the results of our good actions even in this life. And, if there isn't enough life, even if there isn't a next life, you still receive the good results of your good deeds here and now. So it doesn't really depend on a next life. You experience the result in this life as being guilt, worry, remorse, and fear. And maybe after, a certain person loses the election, they might start to reflect, well, maybe it was because, the things I did, maybe that's why people, they're asking, why do 75 million people don't like me? They're saying, well, you can say, well, look, 70 million people do like me. But anyway, I don't want to get into that. But so now we're going to talk about the story of this person, the doer of good. So there was a person named Dhammika who led a religious life. That means he probably practiced the precepts and did good to others, practiced generosity, and was kind and considerate for other people. And he was lying on his deathbed. And while he was lying on his deathbed, he saw happy visions maybe of, heavenly realms and other things. And he had a peaceful death. And after that, he was born in a celestial plane. So those are the verses that pertain to those stories. Those are the stories pertaining to those verses. So that's all about the law of karma. How you suffer or you rejoice in two different ways. That means you suffer from your misdeeds, living an uncontrolled, just eat, drink, and be merry type of, walk over the other person type of attitudes. And then you will gain the painful results of doing that, even whether it's immediate or it's in a day or two, or it's in a week or two, or it's in a month or two, or it's in a year or two, or years later. Everyone reaps the results of their unskillful deeds. And not even living in a Himalayan cave does one escape the results of their deeds, because it will come to you in your mind. And then the same way with the good deeds, that the person is blameless. Oh, I didn't hurt the fly. Today I didn't hurt the fly. In fact, the reflecting on sila is actually a recommended type of anusati, or reflection, which is a kind of meditation. It's a discursive meditation. Sometimes people, when they hear meditation, they think it's just about sitting down, focusing on an object and trying to blank out all your thoughts and, merge into some formless state or some infinite light. Now, that can be a kind of meditation, but it's not the only type. So the Buddha taught these discursive meditations. And to reflect, after each day you're in your meditation. If you did some negative thing, to reflect on that and said, okay, unmindfully I did this or that unskillful thing, and kind of forgive yourself and then resolve not to do it in the future. And if you did good things, you can rejoice in that. Look, today I didn't hurt a fly. I didn't spread any rumors or talk about anybody else behind their back. I didn't take anything that wasn't given. I didn't harm, even the smallest creature. And so you feel good about that. Or you practice meditation. Instead of intoxicating your mind, you practice meditation to detoxify your mind. So that's meditation is the opposite of intoxicating the mind. And we detox the mind through practice of meditation. So, so far, does anybody have any questions that might have come up based on those two verses? Okay, here's something here. I have a hard time with the precept of false speech at times, when speaking truth may harm a person, even cost his life. What is to be done then? Well, that question is also has come up before. And it's true that, when one starts to practice the precepts, there's a lot of challenges and dilemmas that come up in people's minds because of just the way life has evolved, and the immense negativity and so on accumulated in the minds of people in terms of just perpetually telling lies. I mean, even the leaders of our countries are some of the biggest liars they are. I mean, and people look at them. Oh, look at these guys are telling so many lies. We can do it. And so that becomes a problem. But So that's true in other situations. There's often example of, let's say, some criminal is running around the neighborhood, and the police come to you. Maybe you saw the criminal jump over the fence and go somewhere, but then the police come and say, "Did you see this person? Did you see anybody suspicious?" And then you're thinking, well, if I tell them and they go after this person, nowadays, of course, they might even shoot them, right? Even if they don't have to, they tend to, like that, or beat them or whatever. So out of compassion, you may say, no, I didn't see anybody. So you're trying to protect the person. So it is, it's kind of a lie, and there may or may not be repercussions from it. Now, but if you told them and then the person went and the police caught them and, the person got beat or shot or, went to jail and suffered, then probably you're not going to feel very happy about it. Although you might not feel happy about having told the truth, although you might. But, there's all these challenges that come up. So if it's to save a life in that situation, or especially, let's say, in the time of the Holocaust, when they were rounding up all of, certain types of people, and, a lot of people, might have told lies about hiding certain persons in their attics or their basements or this and that, and they got found out, they were shot. That does happen. So you take the karma on yourself, whether it's, you might tell the lie for some innocuous reason, or some compassionate or altruistic reason, but still you may get caught about it and punished. Now, if you're willing to accept that, then of course, that's up to you. And of course, you're always going to be thinking about that. So there's these dilemmas come up, but ultimately it's down to each person has to decide for themselves where you're going to draw the line. The same way with killing, cockroaches or, mosquitoes. Or, these questions come up quite a lot. Save your house, so you're going to, fumigate it for termites, or just let the house get eaten up. So there's, or defumigate your dog if it's got fleas, right? We had this question come up quite a bit, so it's difficult. When you start practicing Dhamma, it becomes difficult. Ignorance is bliss. If you didn't hear the Dhamma and all these things are doing, then people don't even worry about it. They just do it. Doesn't mean you're not going to have some results from it in the future, but still. But once you start practicing the Dhamma, then it becomes more of a challenge. And a headache. That's why a lot of people don't want to bother with hearing the Dhamma or hearing religion, because they don't want to hear things that they know they're going to have to curb, like their drinking or their promiscuity or whatever, so many other different types of things. So, again, it comes down to, and there was a story about when I was at Bhavana Society. There was a guy at the Bhavana Society. Then he left the Bhavana Society and he went up to, I think it was San Francisco somewhere. He was going out of his apartment and he saw some guys putting a woman into the trunk of a car, like kidnapping or something. So he went to confront the people. But they shot him and he wound up losing his leg. I don't know what happened to the woman, but anyway, so this person, out of compassion, in a sense of duty, he confronted these you could call them criminals, I suppose, to try to save the woman. But they shot him and he lost his leg. So now he's got to live with that. And it's probably a mix of happiness as well as, suffering. But anyway, these are the problems that, people are going to come up. And you can't say how necessarily you're going to react in any one type of situation. So, it is difficult. But, apart from these major type of dilemmas, just the overall, it's the attitude of ahimsa and the attitude of just knowing the law of cause and effect and knowing how these things affect the mind. But there's no absolute do's and don'ts. Look at the case of Angulimala, who killed 100 people, or some people say 1,000, but whatever. 100's probably enough. But yet, he attained arahantship. Some months or years after, I think even months after doing that, he attained arahantship. And that means he wasn't reborn. And the most he suffered from killing 100 people were people throwing sticks and stones at him when he went on his alms round, and he got cuts and bruises from that. But that was sort of all. So just because, of course, the paramis of his past deeds, of his good deeds. So anyway, these are difficult questions to answer in a blanket yes or no. But basically, it's up to each person to decide. If they're willing to accept the consequences, then, that's up to you. So the question, in a local magnet school, one group is proposing to use race as a criteria to balance the student body. One group says racism is not good, and only merit should be used. And, everyone has their own, and the other side, of course, talks about, well, our society is going to get so, intermixed up that will, whatever they believe superiority or not, they have these attitudes. And, we can see it. Look at this election, right? So the country is almost split down in the middle, 75 million people voted for one idea, 70 million people voted for another. So it's, it looks like it's, it's fairly equal in terms of the amount of people in this country who, believe on one side about various, rules or ideas, and the other. And you're never going to find equal amount, because of karma goes back hundreds and thousands of lifetimes, and people's minds have been conditioned by the past and so on. So anyway, so how do we use Dhamma to take a position in this policy making? Just vote. As we can see, that's what happened in this election, right? If there hadn't been a big get out the vote campaign in favor of, let's say, the winner, let's say Biden and Harris, right? So, but it took a lot of work to get out those votes. Donald Trump won by, let's say less than 5 million, they're saying now. So that's still not a whole lot when you're talking about 150 million people perhaps who voted. So even without that campaign, with that campaign they still, without the campaign, they may well have lost, without the last couple months, or the people getting fed up with all the lies they've been hearing. But without that, Trump could have easily won. Had no campaigning done in the last 6 months, Trump very well could have won a second term. But because of this publicity and the things that happened in the last 6 months, then enough people got out to vote. So voting is about the only way. Even going out and protest is not going to help. It's the vote. The protests may help people make some decisions, but still. So we have to reflect on our morals and what we feel, and then we have to then vote the party that seems to represent those morals in the way that we feel is the better position. So this next question, I've read that karma begins with intention and thinking. If you have unskillful thoughts, but never speak or act on them, does the karma ripen eventually or dissipate? Can you mitigate unskillful karma with skillful actions? Well, the short answer is kind of like yes. It's kind of yes and no. In some cases, the mind is, the body doesn't do anything without the mind. Some intention or some motivation comes into the mind first, and you say, I'm going to, smack this person, or I'm going to tell a lie, or whatever. So the body's not going to do that without the mental intention. So we read in another sutta that the mind is more powerful than the body, but yet, let's say in Western law, it's there's both. You don't get put in jail for thinking to kill a person, although you may if you get caught with, like first-degree murder. If you intend it, then that's going to be a tougher punishment than accidental homicide, let's say manslaughter, where you don't intend to kill the person. So mentally, you're not intending to kill, but the death happens, so the punishment is less. So in that sense, the mind rules over that. You did kill the person, but because the intention wasn't in the mind, the jury, they give you a lighter sentence. But the relatives of that person that you killed may still hate you and may still do something to come after you and punish you, even if you didn't have that intention, or they might forgive you as well, of course. But so anyway, sometimes the mind is more powerful, and it seems to be more powerful, and sometimes the body seems to be more powerful, or the speech. Because a few ill-directed words can cause you a lot of trouble for a long time. And if you hadn't have said those words, at least you may not get any negative effects from the outside, but within your mind, the thoughts to do it are still in the mind, even though you restrain yourself. So at least the suffering from the external world doesn't come back to you so much. But the mind will chide you and upbraid you for harboring these kind of thoughts, even though it doesn't manifest into some actual action. And you can mitigate unskillful karma with skillful actions. And the best example is about attaining sotapanna. So let's say if a person hadn't practiced the precepts and they broke a lot of precepts in their younger years, but they started practicing meditation. And then because of whatever accumulated past karma, they attained sotapanna, maybe, before they died. And if a person hadn't attained sotapanna before they died, they could have been reborn in a woeful state for having done unskillful actions. But the attainment of sotapanna is said, according to the theory, that the mind will not be reborn in an unwholesome a state of woe if you attain the stream entry. And you only have 7 lifetimes at the most to be reborn before attaining full enlightenment. So in that one act of the sotapanna, you can go from being reborn hundreds or thousands of more lifetimes if you never attain sotapanna, or with that act of attaining sotapanna, you've in fact technically mitigated many lifetimes of karma that otherwise you would have had to work out. So that's just one example. And if you change your mind, the actions could stop. Let's say if a thief, he steals something, so he gets away with it, right? A few times. So he gets away with it, and he thinks, okay, I'll do it again. And he gets into a habit. And then sooner or later, he's going to get caught, or he might get killed in the act of, robbing a bank or breaking into somebody's house. It happens. But if he, at some point, if he changes his actions and stops stealing, then he may not actually get caught for any of those other types of thefts that they did earlier without getting caught. And so at least the heavy karma of getting caught may be mitigated. So you can mitigate, let's say, some of the potential results of your actions by changing the way that you act, in this life by practicing the sila. So this question. So even in the Dhamma, there are no clear answers. I mean, there are guidelines. The Buddhas point the way, but and the Buddha just lays it out. This is the way it is. And if you follow this way, you'll attain happiness. And if you don't, you'll continue to get a lot of suffering. And it's up to you. It's up to you. So it's the guidance is in the Dhamma, but the answer has to come from yourself, whether you're going to follow that or not. And that's going to be based on your understanding. Another question or comment about racism. The Dhamma will teach to be compassionate. If there is 300 years of slavery and white privilege, why can't we hope to change inequity? Why don't we help more people of color to take place? Well, because the number of people who don't want that to happen, still because of wealth, whether it's numbers in physical, maybe not physical numbers, but it's the money, right? We can see that 2% of the population control politics, but because of money. And money talks, unfortunately. It can talk in a bad way, but it can also talk in a good way too. But so that's the reason why there's still enough people with enough money who don't want to concede. They see the allowing equality everywhere as going to encroach or erode their power. And that's why they keep up this racist types of policies. So, and again, there's whether it will ever change or not, we don't know. I mean, slowly we can see it is changing, but still there's, it's this power base, we can see that the people in the majority, if they have more of the money, then that it's still going to win out in a lot of cases. Okay, this other argument, are we responsible for our ancestors' karma? Other question from above is speaking partial truth unskillful. Are we responsible for our ancestors' karma? We might be our own ancestors. I mean, you are your own ancestor, according to the Buddhist idea about rebirth. We've existed already in the past, so we've been our own mother, father. We've been a father, mother, brother, sister, friend, enemy, and stranger, and have harmed others in the past to contribute to the collective karma that now, as we got this new life, we're going to have to experience the results of even things we have done in the past. So you could say that, we are reaping the results of our ancestors' karma because we are those ancestors. I mean, in terms, of course, there's not a permanent being that goes from life to life, but the continuity of the collective habits and so on that we've, sown, that, we're reborn again, sometimes in the similar situations as before, to reap the results of those karma. And oftentimes it's on the receiving end of what we may have been giving out in a previous life. Now we become on the receiving end of it. So somebody who slaughtered animals might be reborn as an animal and get slaughtered themselves. And so on. We see some, stories like that. Speaking partial truth unskillful. Well, it's probably more skillful than speaking total untruth. So, but, again, these questions, it's about the intention within your own mind. And some of the intention may be out of compassion, but the other intention might be out of selfishness also that we don't understand. Let's say, especially with this context about euthanasia. I hope I don't step on anybody's toes by mentioning this, but in some families, maybe a person has a terminal disease or some other kind of is close to death, and maybe they have a big insurance policy, and then maybe one of their relatives, wants to encourage euthanasia so the person dies sooner so they can get that money sooner. But on the surface, it may sound like they're very compassionate and they don't want the person to suffer. But underneath, there could be this greed or expectation of what they're going to get if the person dies sooner. I mean, we can see that does happen. There's been obvious cases of that happening because the mind is very clever in trying to protect itself. So a lot of times it will give partial truths to feel better about the untruths or the unskillful things. That's the other half of the equation. So our mind is very clever, it's always working behind the scenes to protect our deepest attachments. And, it comes back to the ego. Let me see here. Is this why the Buddha recommended against trying to unravel our own karma and just practice the Dhamma? Well, in a way. I mean, I don't think the Buddha encouraged people to try to remember all their past lives in order to see clearly what they did and then the effects of what had happened after that. Now, of course, that could be of some benefit, but not everybody's going to be able to do that. Now, they said that the Buddha could do that, and other monks who had certain meditation powers could remember the past lives, and therefore they were able to tell us how the law of karma works. But it's not likely that the average person or many people are going to be able to do that. But the Buddha's done it for us. He says, this is the way it works. If you do these types of unskillful actions, 10 unwholesome actions, these are going to be the potential results. And if you do the opposite actions, if you give up those negative actions through practice and cultivate the opposites, the good qualities, as we were talking about in these Dhammapada verses, then the life will get better. So we don't have to really know everything we've done in the past life. Now we're going to remember what we do in this life. So you remember what you did as a kid, or as the years went on, as you're growing up in this life. Now you're an adult, and you can see the effects of your actions, what you did as a child, if it had any effects later on, or as an adolescent. You can reflect back, and that's one purpose of it. That's actually one of a kind of reflective meditation, to reflect back and see, yes, how did you get in trouble by previously telling lies, spreading gossip or slander about somebody else, harming other living beings, being overly aggressive in sexual desires, and intoxicating the mind. I mean, anybody can remember the results of doing those things, right? And if you say enough is enough, and you change your actions and attitudes, then you may not escape all of those effects, but by not doing them over, repeating them, the number of them will get less and less in the future, and the life will gradually smooth out. So we can't change the past, we can only change the present. So yeah, practicing Dhamma in the present, that's what's important. But reflecting on the past can be helpful if it helps you to want to practice the Dhamma in the present, by understanding the suffering that you went through and the desire not to keep undergoing that kind of suffering if you just don't change the way you behave and think. This last comment here. I mean to explain why we were born into the present situation, black, white, disabled, rich, or poor. Well, I think I've talked about this before, and so has the Buddha, that, it's Newton's law of a equal and opposite reaction. So, I mean, people may not like to hear this, but I'm just telling you, it's not maybe my opinion, or what, I don't believe it. I'm just telling you what the Dhamma attitude is, that, if you live by the sword, you'll die by the sword. So that means, or if, if you kill people in this life, you might be in the next life on the receiving end of being killed or harmed by different things. Or if you tell lies in this life, and no one in the next life, no one will believe you, and so on. And if you ridicule a person who's disabled in this life, ridicule them, you might wind up being disabled in the next life and people ridiculing you. So in a gross way, this is how the law of karma works. So you can interpolate that as if, if you ridicule some person for whatever reason, their color, their skin, or their religious beliefs or anything else, and it's a strong habit and trait of yours, then it could be that in the next life, in order to, let's say, erase that karmic debt, then you would be on the receiving end of that. And then hopefully one would learn the lesson rather than trying to cause retribution, because we can see a lot of stories in the Dhammapada about this tit for tat thing. And, I think I mentioned that in one of the stories last week, or the Dhammapada verse about, there's two women, had one husband, and one was barren and the other one had the children. And then the one that was barren was jealous and poisoned that woman or their children who died. And of course, the mother of those children that had been poisoned or killed, then of course, she made a vow, I'm going to do the same thing to this person's kids in the next life. And that it actually happened, that in the next life, they were switched. And the barren woman was the one who had kids, and they were killed by somebody else. So, and it went back and forth several times. That's why the Dhammapada verse, hatreds can never be appeased by hatreds in the world. Only through love can they be appeased. So therefore, that's why to turn the other cheek. Don't, just because somebody does something to you, you don't necessarily have to do it back to them, because again, it's just gonna keep this momentum of seeking revenge and cycle going on. So that's, one of the teachings about the law of karma. So whatever we do and how we are born in the present situation is to a large extent, now again, people don't like to hear it, but still, according to the law of karma, that's the way it's normally explained. That, to a large extent, it's partly and even the genes. Why were you born to certain parents? That's also a question. It's part of the karma too. And the genes that you need. So your parents might have certain genes that will give you the conditions or help create the conditions where you're going to experience either good effects or painful effects from that. And it happens by a magnetic pull. There's the idea, I'm sitting up in some in-between states. And, I'm going to choose these parents. I don't think it's like that. I think it's more like a magnetic pull that somehow, everything works by electromagnetic impulses and energy in the world anyway. And so the same way, I think, with the law of karma, that we're attracted to a condition, whether it's a country, whether it's a certain race, or it's a certain kind of parents that will either provide you conditions of good conditions or not so good conditions. But doesn't mean you have to be stuck in that. It means you can change, but nevertheless, you get, how you are born to some extent, depending on the karma. but it doesn't mean you have to be stuck in that condition, and you can change if you practice the Dhamma. So friends, let me see. Let's see if there's any. This okay. Well, just one more question. In India, caste is considered karma, but can be also a way to perpetuate inequity and privilege. Why exclude and not share responsibility to guarantee better conditions for all? Well, I think this is connected to the same question I think the same person had asked just shortly ago, that the caste system, even though originally it might have been formulated with some, merits, but it was abused, just like communism was abused, and the people that had power in communism abused that rather than, creating them being themselves everyone's supposed to be equal, right? But they certainly weren't equal, and so on. So in the same way, the caste system was perpetuated by certain people to control others, whether it was misguided because of delusion or so on. Anyway, it's a complicated thing to try to explain. But even the Buddha had talked about that Brahmins, current day Brahmins, had been untouchables, in many, many lifetimes in the past. And untouchables now had been Brahmins sometime, and they were doing this stuff. So it comes back to you. So that's an example. And the Buddha talked about that in some suttas, where he goes back and talks about the history of mankind and so on. And he definitely mentioned that, especially between the Brahmins and the untouchable caste, because that's where it's so prominent. So in a one way, but it is true that the caste system was a type of karma. If you're born to a Brahmin caste, so there's some certain amount of good karma is landed you there. In the same way with the other. But again, it doesn't mean you're stuck in that. That's what the Buddha railed against. He didn't rail against the caste system per se. He railed against the idea that you couldn't change and that you couldn't change your caste. That's why he said a person is not born into a caste, born into a caste by the body. The caste is in your mind. That's why he called monks Brahmins. They weren't Brahmins by caste necessarily, but even a merchant, if he attained arahantship, he would be considered a Brahmin by the Buddha, because it means purity of the mind. And he called a Brahmin an outcast, a Brahmin who goes and hurts other people or cheats or steals or has sex with underage girls and all whatever. You would call them an outcast, even though they might have been born into so-called Brahmin caste. They're outcast according to their deeds in the mind. So that's how the Buddha saw it. So the Buddha didn't deny that being born in a caste was the result of past karma. But the idea that you couldn't change by giving a person the skills to learn, like, so many of the untouchable people in India today, from the last 40, 50 years, I know quite a lot of them who, because they were given the opportunity to go to university and so on, so many of these Dalit people, they got PhDs and they got jobs in the government and they were improved their life and they were very, very intelligent. Look at the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. He's probably the most prominent example of that. He was born as an untouchable, yet he rose above that by the help of some good-hearted people, of course. But and he was the only one intelligent enough to write the modern Indian Constitution. So they're drafted a previous untouchable person because he was the only person who was intelligent enough, a lawyer and with knowledge of the law, who could draft the Indian constitution. So that's a very good example. Although people still try to treat him like an untouchable. So anyway, it's complicated thing, but so, again, it's not easy. It all comes back to greed, hatred, and delusion, and people don't want to let go of any privilege that they have. If something else is a threat to that, they won't, they don't want to let it go. And that's the problem. And it's only Dhamma that is going to help that understanding. So anyway, I think we've gone enough into that. So I'd like to bring this, it's a very good discussion, and but I think it's time to bring this to an end. Okay, so we'll go ahead and take a few minutes break to use the restroom, drink some water, come back, do a few stretches, and then have our meditation. Okay? See you back in a few minutes. Okay, friends, so we'll go ahead and get ready and do our few yoga stretches before meditating. So find a place where you can stand up and have room to move a little bit. Just try to stand straight. Feel your feet pressing the floor. Just gently close the eyes. Feel the feet pressing the floor. Try to feel your straight legs over the feet. Feel the hands and arms hanging from the shoulders. Relax the shoulders. Feel where the clothing touches the skin on different places. Feel the head balanced on top. Just getting the mind centered, grounded in the body. And then begin some deep, slow breathing, the three-part breathing. Just take about 3 seconds to slowly breathe in, hold the air in the lungs for 2 or 3 seconds, and slowly breathe out. And coordinate these fairly simple movements with that same breathing, repeating each exercise 3 times. You can open the eyes to watch your screen and follow these movements if you need to. On the in-breath, just raise the arms over the head, interlock the fingers, turn the palms up, straighten the arms, stretch your head back, look at the back of your hands, and stretch upwards. On the out-breath, turn the palms downwards and touch the top of the head on the out. And again, in-breath, palms up, straighten the arms, stretch upward, head back, bend your back a little bit. Out breath, touch the top of the head. And third time, hold that upward stretch longer. Arch the back a little bit. Feel all the sensation. And release your fingers. The out breath, arms back to the sides. Relax. Keep the mind centered in the body. Feel the increased body sensation. The clothing touches the skin. Just letting go of your thoughts. Just let the thoughts come and go in the back of the mind. Just remember the present moment of standing. 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 Okay, next on the in breath, raise the arms up over the head in this way while pushing up on your toes. So lift up on balls of the feet and stretch upwards, facing the hands toward each other, 6 inches apart. On the out breath, bring the arms back down to the sides and the heels back to the floor. And again, the in-breath up on the toes, arms up over the head, stretch, touch the sky. Out breath. Use the breathing to help lift and lower the body. Again, in breath, up. Stretch. Out. Relax. Just keep the mind feeling the body. Don't let it wander. Feel the feet pressing the floor. The arms and hands at the side. The head balanced on top. Standing. Standing. And next we'll do side bending using one arm at a time. So on an in-breath, raise your left arm up. And keep your fingers and arms straight, close to the head. On the out-breath, bend over your right side as far as you comfortably can. Try to keep the kind of bicep touching the side of your head if you can. In-breath, lift up. Again, the same side, out breath. Feel the stretch inside. The other hand slide down by the knee. In breath, back up. Again, out breath to the right. In breath. And the out breath, lower that arm. Next in breath, raise the other arm. Do the same thing on the other side. Out breath to the left. In. Out. In. Out. In. And the out breath, lower the arm. Relax. Close the eyes. Just keep feeling the body. Just feel the increased body sensations or any aches and pains might have been caused by the movement. Just feel where the clothing rubs against the skin. If you can't feel any of that, just simply remember standing, standing, standing. Present moment of the body. And next we'll do head turning. On an in-breath, simply turn your head to the right. Look over your right shoulder, or turn the eyes to the right. Look at a spot somewhere behind. On the in-breath, turn the head 180 degrees back to the left, concentrating into the neck vertebrae, feeling or imagining them loosening up. Look to the left. Again, in-breath back to the right. Out breath left. In breath right. Out breath left. On the next in breath, let the head stop in the center. Relax. Start to feel the whole standing body. Feet pressing the floor. The arms and hands at the side. Clothing touching the skin. The head balanced on top. All those different sensations being woven together by the brain, giving the perception of the standing body. Standing, standing, standing. So you feel organic, alive, in the standing body. Okay, now come back to the seat and get ready for the sitting awareness. As normally, I'm going to turn off my video. And just try to get comfortable with the body on your seat. Just try to keep the back erect. Just try to feel the back of the head and your spine in a straight line. Just gently close the eyes. First of all, just feel the weight of the body pressing the floor. Especially try to feel where the buttocks press your seat. Try to feel some sensation in your right buttock and the left buttock. That contact, the hardness, the earth element vibration. And let the awareness just move down your upper legs. Feel where the clothing touches the skin. And rounding the knees. Continuing to move the attention down the lower legs. Feeling any sensation into your feet and toes. And try to focus your attention on your feet and toes. You can do one at a time or both together. You also feel where the sensations where the socks touch the feet, if you're wearing socks. Feel all those little sensations in your feet or toes, subtle pulsations where they touch the floor or touch each other. It's the combination of concentration and mindfulness. Concentration is the ability to hold your attention on one little area. The mindfulness is noticing the different sensations within that area. You now move the attention upwards to feel your hands and fingers. Feel where the hands and fingers touch each other, where they touch your legs. Try to feel the subtle pulsations, tingling sensations. Your thumbs or fingers. See if you can notice the outline of certain thumbs or fingers. Now kind of feel the arms hanging from the shoulders. Try to feel the weight of the arms hanging from the shoulders and the skin, the sensations, the clothing touching the skin of your shoulders or arms. Now feel the head balanced on top of the neck. Or if you can kind of visualize or imagine the spinal column going up through the neck, And try to keep the chin level or parallel to the floor. Just gently kind of imagine lifting the spinal column upwards, sort of to stretch out the spinal column upwards so that there's some space between the vertebrae. Imagine some space between the vertebrae so the blood and electrical energy can freely circulate, maintain the nervous system in its optimal alertness. And just try to mentally feel that or imagine that. At the same time, just feel some sensations on your face, prickling sensations, or kind of stretch sensation of the skin being stretched over the skull, your forehead, nose, chin. And feel your lips touching together. The upper lip touches the lower lip. Try to notice any dryness or moistness in the lip. It's different sensations. And feel the tongue laying in the mouth. Might be laying in the moist saliva, the bottom of the mouth. Feel the teeth or gums. And now feel the outer nose. You feel some little prickling sensations on the outer nose. And take a few deep, slow breaths to try to feel the flow of air in and out of the nostrils. You might even hear the sound of the air moving through the nostrils if you're breathing deep enough. Thousands of times per day, the air is moving in and out of the nostrils, keeping this body alive. But we hardly ever know it. Now discontinue the deep breathing and focus the attention on your eyes in the socket. And the eyelids stretched over the eyeball. Relax the eyes. You might notice some color or pattern or light or just darkness. You might feel a subtle eye movement. If you listen very closely, you might feel the pulse of blood in the capillaries of the eyeball. Now see if you can feel your ear, the outer ear. Might feel a kind of subtle magnetized sensation around the ear. Where your hair or glasses touch the rims of the ear. You can feel inside the ear canal. If you listen very closely, you might hear some inner sound vibration, like the subtle, shrill pitch of high voltage electric wires. Being the brain wave vibration. And from that point in the middle of the head, behind the eyes, just let the awareness expand a little bit. Try to feel the outline of the whole sitting body. Just try to cultivate whole body awareness. Just kind of feeling the sense of the buttocks and feet pressing the floor underneath. The arms and hands at the side. Clothing touching the skin on different places. And the head balanced on top. Not in details, but just that general sense. That mosaic of different sensations. Creating the mental outline of what you call a sitting body, which is a perception. Just try to hold that outline of the sitting body in the mind's eye. And then again, take some deep, slow breaths, expanding the abdomen, rib cage, upper chest. Bring the air into the upper chest. Hold the air in 1 or 2 seconds or longer. Feel the relaxing contractions of the out breath. Just cultivate this basic present moment awareness as you take some more deep breaths. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Now I want to continue to try to count the breaths from 1 to 10. Strengthen the concentration. Just continue taking some deeper breaths if you can. It'll help you to concentrate. And on the next expanding in breath, mentally count 1. Hold the breath in a couple of seconds. On the contracting out breath, count 1. The next expanding in breath, 2. Contracting out breath, 2. Next in breath, 3. Out breath, 3. In breath, 4. Out breath, 4. In breath, 5. Out breath, 5. In breath, 6. Out breath, 6. In breath, 7. breath 7. In breath 8. Out breath 8. In breath 9. Out breath 9. In breath 10. Out breath 10. Now discontinue the counting. Let the breathing return to its uncontrolled, shorter rhythm. Continue to feel it. Keep the attention focused in the same general area. To notice, feel the subtler expanding and contracting sensations. Try to notice where the sensations of the clothing rubbing against the skin, the abdomen, rib cage, stomach, or chest. Those are what help indicate that you're breathing in or out. Just simply maintain a knowing mind, knowing the breath is coming in, knowing when the breath is going out. You know it by feeling it. In the brief pauses between the breaths, feel the outline of the sitting body. Just breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Just breath by breath, moment by moment. That's the object of the concentration, the remembering, sitting and breathing. This breathing body is the natural connection to the present moment. The breathing body is the only continuous reference point that we have that doesn't really change. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. So notice how each breath is different. Just turn up the power of the mental microscope. Try to notice how each breath is different. Sometimes it's longer. Sometimes it's shorter. Sometimes you feel it more in the abdomen. Other times you feel it more in the rib cage or chest. It's always changing. Especially be alert to feel the brief pauses between the breath. After the in-breath, there's a brief pause, just a microsecond or longer. And after the out-breath, there's a brief pause. Feel the pauses to be able to connect the in-breath to the out-breath, the out-breath to the next in-breath. The pauses are the missing link. In those brief pauses, just feel that outline of the posture. Try to notice finer or subtler movement, sensation in the breathing body, in the breath body. The expanding sensations and the pause, the contracting sensations and the pause. It's called the breath body. The body of breathing. From the moment of birth to the moment of death, breathing is always going on. It's going on within the larger physical body. Just observing the body in the body. The breath body within the larger physical body around it. Legs and feet underneath, the arms and hands at the sides, the head on top. Just try to open up to that integration breath body in the larger body. Start to feel that organic aliveness, that organic wholeness. The present moment awareness. Of your original home. This breathing body was where you were born, and where you live. But at the same time, be alert for thoughts or urges or ideas, other hindrances arising in the mind. Even though we might want to stay focused and concentrated in the breathing body, that the mind has other ideas. If you get caught up in thinking, just be aware of it as thinking. Let go of the thought. Just maintain that connection. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. And especially be alert for any urges that arise. Urge to move, or even the urge to think. Just keep relaxing the body and mind more and more into the present moment. If you catch yourself totally lost in thoughts, recognize it as lost. Find the body sitting on the floor. Take a deep, slow breath. Reground the awareness in the body. Coming back to breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. If the mind is stable enough, try to gradually open up to the flow of impermanence. Feeling or observing various sensations, sounds or thoughts, coming and going through the field of awareness. While maintaining that connection to the breathing body. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Sensations come and go. Perceptions and thoughts come and go. Pleasure or pain come and go. Sleepiness comes and goes. These are all just the karmically conditioned flow of the body-mind phenomenon. But just beneath all of that change, flux, mental chaos, it's the silent dimension of ever-present awareness. The present moment, the here and now. Just try to get a sense of that. If you have a good concentrated awareness, just try to feel the body and mind as being like an empty house with nobody home to answer the call, knocking on the doors and windows. But there's a sensitive microphone or a closed circuit video that knows what's going on but yet doesn't know. Beneath the knower and the known is the pure knowing. Letting go of the known, our recognition of distinct object, even letting go of the knower and thoughts of I, me, or mine. Just let them fade into the background. Like a dewdrop disappearing in the morning sun. The knower and the known evaporate. This leaves the pure knowing, the present moment. So what perceptions or thoughts are triggered off by the sound, dependent on contact arises, feeling, perception, thinking. Sambe sankara anicchati yada panyaya pasati atanibindati dukhi esamagu visuddhiyam. All conditioned things, the five aggregates of this body, mind, and world are impermanent. They arise only to vanish away. When one sees this with the eye of wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with suffering. This is the path to purity, to freedom. And thus spoke the Buddha. Now to finish this meditation, let's finish with a few minutes of just sending out thought vibrations of metta to ourselves and the whole world. Just try to take a few more deep, slow breaths. And after breathing in, really expanding the chest, hold the air in the lungs as long as you comfortably can. Just imagine those sensations of the oxygenating blood being like metta to your cells. On the out breath, feel the relaxation of the body and mind into the present moment. Just take several deep, slow breaths like that. Just imagine these, sending that metta, the oxygenated blood, slow, deep breathing, which is purifying for the body and mind. With each out breath, relaxing to the present moment. Just thinking like this to yourself, may I be well, peaceful and wise. May I have the patience, strength, mindfulness, and wisdom to meet and overcome all difficulties in life. May I be able to continue deepening my understanding of Dhamma, the practice of meditation, to help free the mind from confusion and suffering. And if you can, just continue a few more deep breaths. On each out breath, just imagine sending these thoughts of metta, friendly, kind thoughts, best wishes out to your family members, your parents, other family members, relatives, good friends, and just the general world in general. So with each out breath, just imagine these waves of pure love, pure wisdom, pure energy, which is metta, going out in all directions, soothing the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion, of fear in the minds of people. Soothing the pains of their suffering and awakening the seed of love and wisdom in their heart. With each out-breath, imagine these waves of pure energy, metta, going outwards in the 10 directions, permeating and saturating the whole atmosphere and earth with this peaceful wisdom vibration. Now invite you, sitting in your own home there, to join in chanting the word sadhu 3 times slowly if you like. Try to do that on the out breath. Chant the word sadhu in a long out breath tone. We'll breathe in. Place your hands at the edge of the knees, and one more deep, slow breath. Stretch your head back and pull the hands against your knees. Help arch your spine backwards a bit. Hold it a few moments. Feel the sensation. In breath, lift the chin up. Out breath, press the chin to the top of the chest to stretch the neck vertebrae. On the in breath, lift the head up. On the out breath, just relax. Put a smile on your face. Okay, friends. Brings our little Sunday afternoon session together for those actually living in the States and others in Europe. It's probably your bedtime now. And sorry I couldn't hear all of your nice voices, but hopefully next time we'll try to get the audio working again. So in the meantime, Remember, mindfulness today keeps dukkha away. And sutta